Globalization itself is a very flexible term. I think it's a backslash towards democracy and the liberal ideal. When you're comparing with the 90s, people were very hopeful about the liberal world order. At that time, the 80s and the 90s, Margaret Thatcher, she said, Tina, there is no alternative. The assumption at that time seems to be you only have this option to move forward, a liberal, globalized world order, sharing the same ideals, support of democracy, human rights. But right now, it's completely different, especially after the Jasmine Revolution, failure of those democratic experiments in the Middle East. People tend to believe in the fact that authoritarianism in this era is not that bad, at least they offer the basic stability. And we also see the trend towards the support of these non-democratic regimes over the world, including in the States and elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So it's very different from the 90s when we were optimistic about the trend of democratization. Also, the technology had played a very important role. A dictatorship, if being facilitated by big data and machine learning and AI, that would almost be invincible. On one hand, they can control everything, but on the other hand, they can also make the right calculation in terms of welfare system, diffusion of labor, deployment of resources, and people could be satisfied based on these scientific-based authoritarianism. So the overall trend, I believe, in the future would be a growing support of this ruling model. And that is quite different from the original assumption of globalization, but it's also a kind of globalization. So a future world order that is dominated by democracy, that is one option. And a future order that is dominated by dictatorship, that is another option. And they are both globalized.